Good morning. You're listening to WXOX 97.1 FM in Louisville, Kentucky, or streaming on artxfm.com. This is LVA's Artebella on the radio, the show produced by Louisville Visual Art. I'm your host, Keith Waits, and I have three actors here today to talk about the University of Louisville Theater Department's production of William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. It just opened last night. We're taping this on the 12th. It just opened on the 11th, and it will run through November 21st. So as you're listening to this broadcast, there is another weekend of performances. And we're going to talk, we'll talk in the conversation. It is not as open to the public as it was pre-pandemic, surprise. And first, I just want to say the director, Jennifer Pennington, was going to be joining us today, had the booster, not feeling well. We all know that story. Sorry she can't join us today. She's a wonderful guest and always fun to talk to. But today we do have three actors in the production that are all candidates for an MFA from the University of Louisville Theater Department. Allie Fireel, who has been on the show before, old friend of the show, playwright, actor, journalist, who has worked with or written about a good majority of arts groups and artists in the Louisville area. Sara Elston, native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the University of Louisville Theater Department program, who is playing viola in this production, and Jahi Bogard of Atlanta, Georgia, who is playing Sir Toby Belch, which is probably one of the great names that Shakespeare invented among all the great names. So thank you guys for all being here. Allie, let me start with you. The question I would have put to Jen is, so what's going on in this 12th night? Shakespeare is famous, or it is well known that people love to use Shakespeare, to have different interpretations, to get into different kinds of things. His work really lends itself to that. So what's Jennifer Pennington and the rest of you guys doing in this 12th night that's maybe new or different or going to take us by surprise?
Yeah. Just in case it becomes important later, my last name, I legally changed the whole name. It was a saga that I will not go into right now. But so my last name is now Fireel, F-I-R-E-E-L. Just in case people are trying to follow me on Facebook to find out about more various theatrical entities. The starting place for this production came from the interest in making sure that we were casting a broader net with gender and sexuality and to some extent sort of ipso facto race as well, and really moving away from what Louisville and of course theaters across the country are often being shown, which is mostly cis white people, usually mostly men, just because of the structures of the plays. You know, there are usually only one or two women roles written in. And so there was an interest in moving as far away from that as we could, because we want to give all of the actors in the department the opportunity to play roles that maybe they won't get to play when we get out there into the more brutally capitalistic world. And so I think the vision started there, and then there was sort of a spitballing between the director, Jen Pennington, and the dramaturg, Jonna Siegel, and also the design, Jonna Goldentool, different person than Jonna Siegel. Right. Not helpful, but and light and sound and stuff. And so they started working on this idea that Illyria is even more like sort of a fantasy place than it already is written in the play. And that, originally no one's from Illyria. Everybody washes up there at one point or another. And it's this land without social norms, and where gender flipping and stuff like that is a more natural evolution of the social environment. And then with that came, when they decided to sort of try to decide what that looked like, it became a lot of high fashion inspired outfits and clothing, because of course high fashion has been gender bending way more than the general public for eons or so. So there was a lot of inspiration from that. So it's a gender inclusive and race inclusive cast set in a fantasy world inspired by high fashion and deconstructing social mores. That'd be the short answer.
Okay.
Last sentence.
That's terrific. Well, I want to keep getting. I want to get everybody in here. So let's go, Sara. Let's start with you. So you're playing viola, and so and it just sort of occurs to me. So you are in some ways sort of a conventional casting choice, I guess. how does your approach to this character? I mean, in terms of what Allie was talking about, how does your approach to the character? How is it affected by this vision for the play?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of our discussion between Jen and I in the beginning of this process was the idea that Viola is just washing up onto the shores of Illyria. She's coming from a place that is more socially like ours, like our world that we live in, and maybe not super familiar with these gender bending norms of Illyria. And so this play is almost like an exploration, a moment of curiosity for Viola to come upon the shores. We're not playing the funny of, oh my goodness, she's playing a man who's being, drawn into this love triangle between a woman and a man, but instead we're playing with sexuality and kind of the gray areas in between those binaries. Viola is finding these attracted moments between her and Olivia, and we're playing those moments between Duke Orsino and Cesario as well, and trying not to make fun of those moments as much as embrace those moments as opportunities to explore sexual orientation and attraction.
Right, because a lot of this, it's not uncommon in Shakespeare. We can name several plays where it happens. This sort of cross-dressing. It's usually a woman pretending to be a man in the plot, and it's usually there's often in a lot of productions a lot of slapstick humor drawn out of all that. So it sounds like you're saying less of that.
Less of that, absolutely, less of that, and less playing on gross representations of gender and more expressing and engaging with what Viola's interpretation of being a man might be without having to say, oh, I am a man, I'm a manly man, but embracing all of the corners of that realm.
Cool. Interesting.
I would add real quick, if it's okay, I need to not talk too much because that's how I roll usually, is talking too much. But I wanted to add real quickly is that there is humor in those interactions, right? So when Orsino is attracted to this young boy, then he doesn't really understand why. There's humor in it without mocking trans people. There's humor in it without mocking the queer community, because it's still awkward. They still don't know quite what's going on. I heard a really amazing definition of comedy once, which was comedy is a person entering and addressing a situation for which they are wholly unprepared, right? So like you're going in and you don't know how to deal with what's there. You don't know what ground you're on. And our characters are still there when they're falling in love. Our characters are still inhabiting that land where they're upended and confused and doing their best to navigate. We just don't also do it with like, oh, he thinks he's gay, and oh, gay people, oh, woman in pants. Ugh. So I just want to kind of throw that in there.
Oh, and I think of the way it's often played is so that the woman dressed as a man when the or whatever, but there is a sort of maybe a latent homophobia, right, in some of those scenes.
Oh yeah.
When you're all of a sudden very uncomfortable, or that's how it's played. That's what the traditional play. You're uncomfortable with the fact that this is happening because they don't know. And of course, in Shakespeare, sort of off the point slightly, Shakespeare is very good at always relying on not being able to identify or recognize anybody with very little change in their.
Like Superman, you just like throw on glasses and have an S curl, and no one knows it's you.
Exactly. I wonder sometimes if Schuster and Siegel, when they invented Superman, if they weren't thinking about Shakespeare. But so Jahi, let me get you in on the conversation. So Sir Toby Belch is, and correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen this play a number of times, but I haven't studied it the way you guys are studying it as students, particularly. Sir Toby Belch is sort of a little bit apart from the main plot line, these romance storylines. Talk a little bit about that character and what's going on with you.
Yeah. So this is my thesis role. Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that. And so Jen let me actually choose which role I wanted to be. And when I told her Sir Toby Belch, she was shocked. She was like, I did not think you were going to choose that. I thought you were going to choose like Orsino or, I don't know, like a big person or whatever.
Mhm.
But no, but I wanted to do Sir Toby because I think of Sir Toby, the traditional Sir Toby, as the poster boy for disgusting straightness. Like that's, and I was just like, what if we turn that on its head? What if we make Sir Toby, this disgusting straight man, into this fabulous gay queen? What if we do that? What would that do? I didn't know if it was gonna work. Honestly, I didn't know. I thought it could be a success or it could have failed. Luckily, it became a success. But yeah, but that's the direction I wanted to go with Sir Toby.
Well, and I would say, particularly in an academic environment, where you're supposed to be learning and growing and developing, and I think artists are always doing that, or they've stopped being artists. But when you say you don't know it's going to work, it seems like that's exactly the reason to do it.
Yes,
Right.
yes, most definitely. And I knew, I was like, it was something new. I knew it was something new, and I went on YouTube and I like looked up stuff, and I was like, I'm sure someone has played Toby like this before, and I couldn't find anything. I talked to Jonna, our dramaturg. She's like, yeah, no, I haven't seen anyone do Toby like this, and so it's like, ooh, this is exciting. We've discovered something that the general public hasn't seen. And so, yeah, that's just exciting to me.
Could you real quick for
ahead.
us, Jahi, explain, because the audience may not know what a thesis role is. So sort of just lay that out for them a little bit really quick.
Yeah. So the third year grad students write a thesis, and it basically describes your process with your character, your research, and how you use that research to inform your character work. And then what you plan to do with this research, and with what you found in your character, what you plan to do after. And that's basically what it is.
And so usually thesis roles are, Hamlet or something, like you say, like larger roles that are known for their complexity.
Yes.
You had a very specific idea about what to do with this character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely.
No, well, I like that. I like that. It sounds like you know what you're doing, but it also, listening to you guys talk, it seems to me like a lot of times, as I said in the introduction, Shakespeare is always, there's so many different productions that they set it in different times, different periods, different, all sorts of high concept ideas that, sometimes use Shakespeare to inform the fresh take, and sometimes I think overwhelm Shakespeare. But it seems to make a lot of the concepts are about design and context, but that this maybe not, it's not unprecedented, but that there's a lot of concentration on the characters being seen in entirely different ways. In other words, Sir Toby Belch would be the same Sir Toby Belch whether you set him in 5 different periods, right? It still gets played the same way, but that you guys are actually approaching the characters at a fundamental level in a different way. Yeah. Does that seem fair to say? I'll just throw that out to whoever wants to jump in.
I would say no.
No?
I would say that there is an underlying basic humanity to, for example, Toby. There's an underlying basic humanity that remains unchanged, and finding that, I think, finding the heart of that and the truth of that, and for any role in Shakespeare and for any sort of casting, getting through the jokes, the language, the imagery, the poetry, all of the different things, getting through to that and figuring out what the heart of the character really is always part of the work, right? Mm-hmm. And so doing it in a circumstance like this still shares that excavation, and then you sort of bring your humanity to it, and or your concept and stuff to it. I think of Falstaff a lot, because I think in a lot of ways Toby is kind of this sort of this echo of Falstaff. Mm-hmm. And I think underneath the drunkenness and the funniness and the shenanigans, the heart of Falstaff is very melancholy, right? And so however you were going to approach Falstaff, like finding, that heart, I think is important. I've seen some very funny Falstaffs who really missed the mark because there was none of that sense of melancholy or world weariness or any of that stuff. And I think that that's true of most of the roles. And of course, different actors would disagree on what what that is in each role and what the heart of each role is, but they're wrong. I'm right.
Well, yeah, to add on to that, Allie, yeah, it's like you can't add anything that isn't there, if that makes sense. Like you can't bring something to the character that the text doesn't say. It just won't make sense, especially in Shakespeare. It just won't relate. But with Toby, it's all because I'm changing the delivery of the lines. You're right, Allie. It's the heart of it is still the same. You know, a straight Sir Toby wants the same things as a gay Sir Toby. You know, it doesn't matter about sexual orientation. That's not the point. It's about the humanity, as Allie said. It's about the core humanity of it.
I think that humanity that we're talking about is what keeps Shakespeare being produced forever by everyone, is that there is that core value of humanity that just runs through every character. And I know that it was a huge emphasis in the beginning of our process that Jen kept asking us, I want to include all of your identities in these characters. I want to make sure that we are speaking to those differences that we have, those things that make us beautiful and unique, because we want to make this play beautiful and unique and not be concerned with replicating something that we've already seen. We don't want to be concerned with necessarily playing a character how we've seen multiple actors play these characters in the past.
Yeah, something can be very technically skillful, can totally work on the page and on the stage, and still lack that spark. And it's when a performer doesn't really bring themselves to it in whatever form bringing themselves to it is. I identify as queer, and there's not a ton of queerness in my character. I flirt with Toby Belch a lot. We can dig into that later. But for me, playing this outsider who is sort of in and out of people's lives and is sometimes in these drunken scenes and sometimes not in these drunken scenes, I ended up, like, okay, like what in me works with that? And at first I kind of fought against it because I was like reading the text and I'm like, I'm a bipolar alcoholic for anyone that doesn't know listening at home. And so I'm reading the text and I'm like, wow, Festy's kind of bipolar. Wow, Festy's kind of an alcoholic. And then I was like, Allie, you can't just make every character you ever play a bipolar alcoholic. But then I was talking with Rachel Carter, who is an incredible professor at the university, voice professor, and she does a lot of really incredible Shakespeare work with us, including the ways that you work with the text, the ways that you look at the first folio.
And we lost Allie.
I think we lost Allie. Just for listeners, Allie was having some computer problems before we started, so they may be rejoining us at any moment. So, and Allie was playing Festy. I don't think we said earlier, I specifically called out who you guys were playing, but Allie is playing Festy, who is, and again, I keep trying to think back, to my memories of the old show. It's kind of in your circle, right? Sir Toby Belch is a part of that.
Yeah, the full circle.
Called the clowns and Shakespeare, the little secondary. Is music important in this show?
Oh, yes, it is. The reason why I'm so excited is because one of our early experiences with the rehearsal for the show was the prologue. Jen wanted the prologue to be sung. She wanted music to it. And we all just got together and had like a jam session. And we just like, yeah, what are we going to do? What do we want this to sound like? And a moment that sticks out to me was the first tune was like the first draft was like a yo-ho type song, really like captainy, whatever. And then Latrice, who plays Olivia, Lady Olivia, she said, this sounds really, how did she say it? This sounds very colonial, sounds very, and I was like, white. And she said, yes, yes, it sounds very white. I said, got it. And so we shared that with the group, and we then started coming up with this reggae type beat and this reggae type feel. We had drums and just working on it. And then as soon as we started playing it and started singing it, everyone in the room was like, yes, yes, that's, getting excited about it. And it's like, yeah, this is it. This is it. I just thought that was a magical moment. And that's, it definitely speaks to bringing our identities into the play and actually playing with them. Yeah, that was just cool.
It also illustrates, and so my question is, it sounds like what you're talking about too is that sometimes to find your way to these new ideas, you have to kind of first touch base with the tradition. So you were kind of approaching that song in the traditional way, which is like a sea shanty, right? It's so so you have that departure point where you know what that foundation is, even while you're moving very far away from it.
Yeah.
Was that important?
It's like trying on a pair of shoes and being like, yeah, they fit, but they're not me. And that's what it felt like for our cast, was like, yeah, this works, but it's not us. It doesn't fully represent our whole cast. It doesn't represent what we're trying to do. And so it blended into this beautiful, beautiful moment.
And so, Allie, you're back, and I just want to give you a chance. I don't know if you had sort of, did we lose them again? Just as I went to them? Well, we'll give Allie a chance to come back in.
I swear, I pushed a button on my phone. I don't know what to...
That happens. Well, I just want to give you a chance to, had you finished your thought, or did you want to you were talking about playing Festi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I had sort of jumped through the idea that I'm a bipolar alcoholic in my first read of the script, or not even first, but as I was diving into it, I felt like I was picking up clues that Festi was a bipolar alcoholic. And then I, sort of was like, oh, you can't just always play yourself. You're projecting that onto the script, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was working with Rachel Carter, who is a voice professor at the university and who is helping us with this production, just kind of coming in periodically and being like, hey, here's some stuff with the text and here's the stuff with sound. And I was sitting down with her and she's like pointing things out. And she's like, I think that there's a lot of this character that's like sad and removed sometimes and then really happy sometimes. And she'd be like, and they're in all these scenes where there's a lot of drinking and sometimes they're engaged and sometimes they're not. And I'm like, well, damn it. He's a bipolar alcoholic. I was right. And then I was like, no, but then I was like, I wanted to be like, I knew that. I knew that. I figured that out.
Well, the alcoholic part is not that difficult to come across in Shakespearean clowns.
Right.
I doubt you get much argument on that. So Sarah, and I know this is not talking about your character, but I appreciate you guys are talking about different characters besides who the three of you represent. I think that's important. I have my own history of watching Twelfth Night over the years has been, I always thought it's Viola's play, it's Viola's play, it's Viola's play. And it's often done that way, like if you have a name actor that will play Viola in, commercial productions. But then I watched it once a few years ago, and all of a sudden I was like, wow, Olivia is really an interesting character. Why have I never noticed that before? And I don't know if it's the cutting or the casting or whatever. But there was a part of me that I guess what my question would be is talk to me about what is the relationship or the contrast of Viola and Olivia in the play? Because they seem as these two women, I came to feel like they have almost equal weight in the play. And of course, Viola steals the scene with the cross-dressing always, right? Because that's the Shakespearean trope. But what's your take on that, how those two characters function?
I think that both of these characters are really strong representation of brilliant women. I think that one of Viola's most honorable traits is that she's witty. She keeps up with the men, she is right there matching wits with Festi in our scene together. And she's right there challenging Orsino in those scenes. And when she gets to Lady Olivia, she sees Olivia past this beauteous, queen that she is, that she absolutely is, but she's much more than just a beautiful face. She's a goddess inside and outside. And I think that Viola is one of the first people to see that within her. And so in our scenes, there's just such synchronicity and chemistry between Latrice and I, the actress who's playing Lady Olivia, because I feel as if we see each other in that sense. You know, I feel that my representation of Viola is recognizing that her beauty is so much more than just an outward thing, that she is a force to be reckoned with on so many levels, and is respecting that of her and not intimidated of it, but you know, maybe intimidated in the sense that she's being sought after by Olivia in certain scenes, but sees her as a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, 1,000%. It's not that she's jealous of her as much as it's like, I can see why everyone is absolutely madly in love with this character.
Right. And say Latrice's last name just so we get it.
Latrice Richardson.
Okay, right.
Yes, she's fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny that you're talking about, you know, whose play it is. And I don't have my copy of The Arden Shakespeare, which I greatly prefer. I don't have my copy of The Arden out here because I feel like in the beginning of each play it lists who has the most lines, like line by line. And I don't think that, you know, I don't think that there's much separation. Like whoever has the most lines, there's not going to be a huge separation between that and, you know, whichever of the main characters has the fewest lines, you know, if it's Feste or Toby or Sir Andrew Aguecheek or something like that. And I think that's one of the things that makes a lot of Shakespeare's comedies, whether it's Twelfth Night or The Tempest or Midsummer Night's Dream or other ones. I know All's Well That Ends Well. That's one. I think that's one of the things that makes them so great is because there are equal opportunities among all, you know, those 5 to 6 leading roles to really shine and come to the fore and really have wonderful moments, which I think is really fascinating and looks great on stage. Because I think it's actually Toby's play.
I do too.
Well, Toby would agree. Toby would agree.
I do think that the reason why for so long Viola's that role has been seen as like one of the leading roles is because that's the character that kind of holds the audience's hand through the entire show. You know, we're discovering everything just as they are. There's not really much, there aren't many moments in this play where the audience is ahead of Viola. She's pretty much seeing everything and discovering the story as the audience is. And there are so many interactions between Viola and the audience where my character will turn and be like, what is going on? And so I see why in the past that's been the case.
Oh, there you go. Just a glitch. We you froze for just a second. I thought we might lose you. Well, no, it goes back to what you're talking about in the first place, which was that, you know, Viola has just washed up on the shore and is coming into the community of Illyria, so that she is the audience's surrogate to some extent, no matter what, maybe even more traditional. Yeah. So okay, let's you guys, it's fascinating. I'm learning. Like that was such a marvelous insight you just said, Sarah, and makes me think differently about the play. This is why I love talking to actors. So you're working in an academic environment, which in a lot of ways can be really cushy, you know. I mean, and I don't mean in terms of like soft, but like the sort of resources available to you. Allie talked about, you know, you've got this professor, this vocal coach professor coming in and working with you, that you've got Dr. John Siegel, who's been on the show before as your dramaturg. And I don't know about all the experiences you have. I know that Allie has worked in other environments and professional and stuff. Do you feel like you do have more resources because of the academic environment? Is there, like, you've always got somebody to turn to for any kind of question or problem besides your very capable director?
Because the resource that we don't have in the academic environment is time. We are so slammed with so many classes and projects and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, I could have like a 7-hour conversation with a dramaturg about this play and understand it so much better, but I've got 15 things due. So I'm going to go do those things, and then I'm going to get to have a half-hour conversation with a dramaturg. And so it's a give and take. It's and we have teaching duties and stuff like that. That's one of the ways we sort of justify our funding, because it's to give a shout out to the program. It's a fully funded program. We all get paychecks every month. That's not true of a whole lot of master's programs out there, especially as funding continues to get cut in institutions. And of course, the arts are always the first to get cut. So shout out to my paycheck. And so we're teaching and we're learning and we're doing all these things, and then we're doing Shakespeare on top. And Sara and I and Jahi, although I don't have as many classes with Jahi, so I don't know exactly what their schedule is, like frequently, we get to class at 8 or 9 in the morning, and we don't leave except for an hour for lunch or an hour for dinner. We don't leave till 10 or 11. And it's almost straight through working. So yeah, it's cushy, and yeah, it's not. It's a funny dichotomy.
Well, maybe cushy wasn't the best choice of words, but that's the answer.
I mean, what you're saying, and yes, it is amazing to have those people. I didn't mean to naysay any of them.
No, and I love your answer. And one of the constant themes in this show with everybody I talk to, and but I find particularly with visual artists, and we're not talking about that now, is the people outside of the environment often dramatically underestimate the amount of work that goes into the life of an artist. Now, we know, looking at anybody that's doing theater, like, well, you have rehearsals and tech week, and stuff like that. But when somebody's painting, there's a tendency to think like, oh, you just sit and paint. How nice for you. You don't have to worry about making a living or marketing yourself or agreements with galleries or whatever. It's like so being an artist is always a lot of work. Absolutely. So let me just put this out there. I think, Allie's been here in Louisville, and I've known them for quite a while. But Sara and Jahi, did you come to Louisville to do this program, or were you already here at some level?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know. Am I about to lie? No, I'm not. I didn't know where Louisville was. Until
you came from Atlanta. You knew it was somewhere up there. It was north.
Yeah, I knew it was somewhere over there. That's what I knew. But yeah, and then when I heard about it, and I heard it was in Kentucky, when I heard about U of L, it was in Kentucky. I was like, Kentucky? Who wants to go to Kentucky? Not me. What's in Kentucky? But I get here, and it is not at all what I thought. I thought, just farmland and nothing going to be around. But it's not at all what it was. And I was really excited about that. And being here for 2.5, 3 years, I've grown to really love Louisville, really love being here. And even though it is south, to me, it's the most northern, southern town that I've ever been to. And that's kind of I don't know, it feels like I'm somewhere new. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense to me. I'm from here, but I've always reckoned, because when people would say oh, you're from the South, and I'm like, God, I really don't feel like I'm from the South. And it really depends on, but you can talk to somebody in another part who grew up in another part of Louisville, and they'd be like, oh yes, we're from the South. Mm-hmm. It's a real mix. It's, I think, because of the geography. But Sara, what about you? What's your story?
Yeah, I am originally from Pittsburgh, PA, but I graduated from Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina. Ooh. And I
what about South?
Yes, more South than here. And so from the north to the south to the middle, I guess. And so I knew of Louisville. I've never been to Kentucky before I came here for the Southeastern Theater Conference, where I auditioned and got a call back with U of L, and in my interview, it was the best interview I had all day long, and my sort of artistic mission aligned with U of L's, and it was fate from there. I signed on as soon as I got the word that I was accepted, and there has been no looking back since. I really love this city. I'm a second year, so my first year was entirely online. So I got to know Allie and the other 2 members of our cohort mainly over the internet and virtually, and we only saw each other a few times over in person. And it wasn't really until this year that I was exposed to the beauty of this city and all the amazing artistic opportunities that come here in Louisville. I just find it to be a really creative and culturally rich community here, and
Mhm.
I can't wait to, find more. I feel like I'm on an adventure.
Well, I'm interested. You said that you had a great interview. Was it because you thought the people or person interviewing you gave you a lot, or like what was it that made that a great interview?
I think it was, well, they were my last interview of the day, and so by that point, my facade of I'm a professional actress was kind of down, and I was about ready to go back and take my heels off, and so I was just sitting there, and I couldn't hold up that sort of reflection of myself anymore, and they accepted that fully. And they wanted to know more about me and less about what I can do. And that was really important to me. They honor arts through action, they honor community engagement, they honor our personal artistic goals as artists so much. That is the forefront of our program, is making sure that everything that we are is involved in our process and in our training. And that's exactly the kind of program that I was looking for, somewhere where I knew that they were going to support me and my goals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who I'm wondering, I'm curious who you spoke to, who represented the program so well. I mean, it seems like we should give them a shout out.
Yes, shout out to Ari. What's
Ari
Ari's last name?
Calvano.
Ari
Calvano.
Calvano. Yes.
Ari Calvano.
Ari
Ari was the
Calvano
best,
and
of course,
Sage
yeah.
Monroe Williams.
Oh, okay.
They're very, very amazing instructors. We get to see them very often in our training, and they're a huge, huge asset to our program.
Mhm.
Yeah, Ari is actually the reason I'm at this, or one of the reasons. It was a complex decision-making process for someone as old as me to go back to school for acting. But working with Ari on a production of Women Laughing Alone with Salad for 502, she directed it.
Yeah.
Absolutely why I ended up in grad school again, because we were sort of just like shooting the poo. And I don't know how it came up in conversation, but she misunderstood what I said. She was like, "Oh, you're interested in going to grad school?" And I was like, "Oh, no, you totally misunderstood what I said." And then like the idea had had been planted in my head. Not later, I was just like, but what if I did? So I don't know if this is like cool or uncool to bring up, but like, yeah, they're Ari's up for tenure soon, and U of L, I mean, listen up. If you don't give that person tenure, if you let that person get away, you're a fool.
Period. Talk about it.
Full stop.
We were in a really amazing production last year, and it was over Zoom, so we didn't, I think, get to interact with it quite as fully as we would have. But a production last year that Ari directed called Reformation, which was based on a age play called Formation, or no, what? Oh, dang it, I'm forgetting the name. Refashion. Sorry, it's not called Reformation, it's called Refashion. And in a very similar way, we were encouraged to sort of bring our identities and bring our genders and stuff like that to those roles. And it was a pretty incredible experience as well.
Yes, I saw that, and it was fascinating. And I totally second your recommendation about Ari. She's a treasure.
Yeah. Using they them now. So.
Yeah. Well, so I think this is a good stopping point. And if anybody else wants to say anything, here's your last chance.
Yeah, definitely, folks.
Up
the theater program at the University of Louisville. We're doing amazing things, and we're working hard to share it with the community. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We will be releasing 12th Night on video. We would love to see you guys see that. We would love to see you guys. We would love for you guys to see that. And I think they're already in the process of taking applications both for undergraduates and for graduates. We have an incredible program for both. And we would love to continue to see new people, both from Louisville and from other places. Because if this is going out on the internet, then maybe far and wide, people who are interested in 12th Night will see this and come go with us.
Well, and I say for, I think for people in Louisville, we talked about, so it's limited, it's not open to the public at large, but there are a limited number of seats. And I think I would maybe approach it this way, so you guys don't get in trouble. Hey, if you know any one of the guests, or if you know Jennifer Pennington, or John Siegel, or Ariadne Calvano, if you know somebody at U of L and you're interested, I think if you called, you could probably, there's a reasonable chance you might be able to get a seat.
Yes.
And because it's a limited number of seats, but that's even more reason why there should never be an empty one of those seats.
Yes.
Right. So I know I'm not supposed to advocate for you exactly, but I'm just trying to help people get back to seeing theater. So, because it's important. So thank you guys for joining me today. Allie Fireel, who is Fireel, and Sara Elston, and Jahi Bogard, all in this production of Twelfth Night. It opened on November the 11th. It runs through November the 21st. Is there a Sunday show that 21st?
Yes.
Matinee.
Say numbers, but yes, there's a Sunday after this one.
Yes. When you're listening to this, there's one more weekend. So, all right.
Well, you can find the Department of Theater Arts on Facebook, and it'll have information about it. I'm on Facebook, Allie Fireel. You can hit me up and bother me about it as well.
I mean, if nothing else, you got to go see Jahi's thesis role.
Period. You have to. You must. It's a must see.
The fabulous Sir Toby Belch. All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll sign off now.
Thank you.
Thank you.